Hello, my name is Kadri Wunder-Fontana and I'm the Group Head of Sustainability at Luminor Group in the Baltics. And I would like to welcome you today to our 8th climate seminar that is today about the climate risk in transport sector. Today on the agenda we have two large blocks. So we are going to hear about the regulatory framework that is influencing the sector. So we have Vaidas Makonis from Cobalt, who is going to give us an overview of what kind of regulations are going to be manifested as of when are they applicable to the companies in the Baltics. And then we will have introductions and panel discussions about the trends, challenges and perspectives in the industry by three people who are really hands-on in the industry working on transitioning to a low-carbon economy. So we will have Kaur Sarv from Scania, we will have Joone Sestakauskaite from Neste and Andres Gupta from Hertz. And at the end we will have questions and answers and the wrap-up session. So why are we as Luminor talking about it? So we as Luminor, we have set three key priorities. We would like to be CO2 neutral in our own operations. We would like to support the transition to low carbon economy, and this means transition of us and transition of our customers. And we have decided to focus and care for local Baltic issues, working together with NGOs and supporting local social entrepreneurs. As Luminor, we have committed ourselves to align our operations and activities to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we have picked three of those that we really want to contribute to. The number 13, climate action and planet. The number 8, people and prosperity to ensure decent work and economic growth for the people and our stakeholders in the Baltics. And number 16, building strong institutions at all levels and the governance. This governance part is also seen from our own side, where we have recently obtained a Sustainalytics rating, which is the best among the bears in the Baltics. What we have also done is we have committed to align our operations to Paris Agreement, and this means achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. What it means for us as a financial institution is that we need to achieve net zero in our own operational emissions, and we will have to steer our portfolio of financed emissions intensity to net zero towards the 2050 in line with science-based targets. In order to get there, we have calculated already our initial set of science-based targets and are going to submit those by the end of this year. Why are we talking about climate risk and this transport sector here? What we see is that among the different customers who we have in different sectors, some of the sectors are more exposed to climate risk and some of them are less. One of the main risks in the industries is the emissions, for example, what they cause, because they will be then regulated by the regulators to reduce them on very heavy terms going forward. We as a bank, we are in the business of understanding risks and managing risks. And this is what is topic for us. We also have a lot of activities and know-how put into this area to understand the risks, what are applicable and what and how could those risks be mitigated. So what we see, for example, in the transport sector is that transport sector contributes to 20% of generated emissions globally. And because of this, it is under a significant transition risk. Transition risk means that transition risks are risks that, for example, regulation will happen in order to steer the whole industry towards this carbon neutrality. It can also be that the customer chain, the demand will change, or there are litigations happening. So these are the overall transition risks. There are no very specific chronic physical climate risks. So physical climate risks in our terms in the banks means like floods and avalanches and land erosion. So there are no specific risks applicable to the sector, but acute accidental items may happen. So as you see here, physical risks for the transport sector that are relevant in any terms would be extreme weather events. So if there is a flood, so a truck or car is on the road and the road is washed away, or trees fall on the trucks. So these belong under the physical risks. And transition risks in the transport sector are, in this case, introduction of new regulations, the technology change, and the customer preference change. So in order for us, because this, just going back once more, this transition risk is the most material in our terms for transport sector. And in order to minimize this risk and establish resilience over long term, we as banks are asking our customers in the transport sector going forward to establish transition plans. How are they going to get ready for this net zero by 2050? How are they going to get ready to face those physical and transitional risks that are coming? To make it a little bit more clear, what does a transition plan mean? So transition plan means that it has a plan that contains targets, measures, and very, very specific performance indicators that can be tracked over time, where the progress can be seen by a bank. So we have already cases where we have established those sort of bank transition plans with our customers, where, for example, the customer has committed to establish specific targets with regards to emissions reduction, and they are reporting to us also on a regular basis their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Transition plans can also contain other elements. So there can be, for example, the change of existing fuel change to more sustainable alternatives. There can be a gradual shift to low or zero emission vehicles. There can be an optimization of transportation routes, finding the most effective solution while meeting the customer demand at the same time. There can be also an element about the implementation of energy efficiency measures specific to the transport section, or policy deals. For companies operating with heavy-duty vehicles, there are softer requirements for transition plans, but these are case-by-case review is necessary, what kind of elements should really be part of those transition plans. But in order to dig deeper and understand now what is impacting the sector, I would like to introduce you to our next part of this seminar. So this brings me to Vaidas. And Vaidas is representing Cobalt. Vaidas is a partner at the Cobalt Law Agency, and he's also the head of the Environment, Transportation and Regulatory Practice Group at Cobalt. And he is going to explain us about the regulatory framework influencing the sector.
So,
welcome, Vaidas.
So, welcome. Hi, everybody. I'm Vaidas from Cobalt. I'm partner in Cobalt, and also, as was presented by my colleague, I'm head of the Environment, Transportation and Regulation Practice Group, which also dealing with sustainability these days. Yeah, and today, I would like to present the powerful combination of two groundbreaking initiatives that are shaping the future of the European Union. It's the EU Fit for 55% package and the EU Green Deal. These visionary plans represent a united front in tackling climate change, and the regulatory changes will have a profound impact on the transport sector, pushing in towards sustainability and resilience. The EU Green Deal, a comprehensive roadmap unveiled by the European Commission, envisions Europe as the world's first climate-neutral continent by 2050. It sets ambitious targets on strategies across various sectors, to transition to a sustainable and circular economy. The Fit for 55% package, an integral part of the Green Deal, is a concrete and decisive step towards realizing this vision. You will have the opportunity to see the current situation yourself and decide whether these initiatives are necessary. In our opinion, the current situation is bad enough to make certain changes in order to achieve a more eco-friendly and sustainable future. EU Green Deal raises big goals that can certainly look scary, but that is why it is important to talk about the Fit for 55 goals first and try to achieve them. Transportation plays a crucial role in our daily lives, connecting people, businesses, communities. However, it is also responsible for a significant portion of carbon dioxide emissions, contributing to climate change and environmental degradation. Recognizing this challenge, the European Union has taken a bold step by introducing the Fit for 55 package, which sets a clear roadmap for a more sustainable and eco-friendly transport system. The package consists of a comprehensive set of measures that cover various modes of transportation, including road, maritime, aviation, and rail. Its primary objective is to ensure that the transport sector aligns with the EU's ambitious climate goals, aiming to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. So, what are the key regulatory changes that will shape the future of the transport sector in the EU? Today, I invite you to take a closer look to the changes affecting road transport. Yeah, it works. As I have mentioned before, you will have the opportunity to evaluate the current situation yourself. So let's take a closer look to the current situation in EU. And we have some figures here, and also we can now compare what we can see in Lithuania, what number is. And we see that, for instance, Lithuania is below the average of Europe in all figures. So this is the Lithuania. The goals that I will present to you in just a moment are quite distant and may not seem impactful on present, but the plans for achieving 2030 goals or Fit for 55 measures will surely start to be impactful very soon. What are the goals for European Union? The European Green Deal aims to achieve a 90% reduction in transport-related greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. New heavy-duty vehicles being zero emission by 2050 and actually climate neutrality by 2050. Of course, no one aims to achieve those goals without raising any smaller, intermediate goals. That is why we have the Fit for 55 package. Let's talk about Fit for 55. The European climate law makes reaching the EU's climate goal of reducing EU emission by at least 55% by 2030 as a legal obligation. EU countries are working on new legislation to achieve this goal and make the EU climate neutral by 2050. What is the Fit for 55 package? The Fit for 55 package is a set of proposals to revise and update EU legislation and to put in place new initiatives with the aim of ensuring that EU policies are in line with the climate goals agreed by the Council and European Parliament. Why Fit for 55? Fit for 55 refers to the EU's target of reducing the greenhouse gas emission by at least 55% by 2030, as I mentioned before. The proposed package aims to bring EU legislation in line with the 2030 goal. The package of proposals aims at providing a coherent and balanced framework for reaching the EU's climate objectives, which ensures a just and socially fair transition, maintains and strengthens innovation and competitiveness of EU industry, while ensuring a level playing field vis-à-vis third countries' economy operators, underpins the EU's position as leading the way in the global fight against climate changes. What are the national aims for 2030? Improving transport connectivity within the country with EU member states and third countries, and ensuring road safety. Improving digital connectivity and increasing the efficiency of the use of transport infrastructure and the value created by the sector. And also increase the share of renewable energy sources and the use of alternative fuels in the transport sector, promote sustainable intermodal mobility and reduce transport-related pollution. So what means in general? Means are essential for achieving aims as they provide the necessary tools, resources, and strategies to bridge the gap between aspirations and accomplishments. Since the aforementioned aims are not the smallest and very easily achievable, EU and the member states have set out certain means to guarantee a smooth achievement of the aims. So what EU means? European Commission has proposed ambitious new CO2 emissions target for new heavy-duty vehicles from 2030 onwards. These targets will help to reduce CO2 emission in the transport sector, trucks, city buses, and long-distance buses, which are responsible for over 6% of total greenhouse gas emissions and more than 25% of greenhouse gas emissions from road transport. The strengthened emission standard would ensure that this segment of the road transport sector contributes to the shift to zero emission mobility and the EU climate and zero pollution objectives. The Commission proposes phasing in stronger CO2 emission standards for almost all new HDVs with certified CO2 emissions compared to 2019 levels. Especially, we could see the figures here. And to stimulate faster development of zero-emission buses in cities, the Commission also proposes to make all new city buses zero-emission as of 2030. What is national means? Under the updated EU rules, which oblige the EU to reduce emission by 40% in some areas by 2030, Lithuania's reduction at 21%, Latvia's at 17%, and Estonia's at 24% below 2005 levels. National targets vary according to each country's gross domestic product per capita and cost effectiveness. In addition, member states will need to ensure that they do not exceed the annual greenhouse gas emission target. What are the national means to changes in excise duty rates? The amendments to the law on excise duty set the excise duty rate for unleaded petrol at figures 4.66 per 1,000 liters of product, and the excise duty rate for the variable part of the CO2 excise duty from 1st January 2025. For liquid petrol, the excise duty rate will be 579.24 euros per 1,000 liters of product plus the variable rate of the CO2 excise duty. And here we see the table with changes by the year, which increase all those duties, which will be depending on the kind of fuel the transportation sector will use. For instance, Lithuania will be trying to achieve the national and EU aims by lowering greenhouse gas emissions, increasing intermodal freight volume, as well as increasing the part of multimodal cargo carriage. The country's aim for electric car percentage in car fleet by 2030 might not look impressive, but if we were to compare this number to the current number, as I mentioned before, it's very low comparing to all EU figures. It would surely show quite a big improvement. And lastly, lowering the percentage of greenhouse gas emission from transport emissions also plays a very important role in achieving of common objectives. And again, EU means from 2026, road transport will be included into the emissions trading scheme, which will mean the pollution will have to be paid for and will provide incentives for switch to cleaner fuels and to reinvest in clean technologies. The border carbon assessment mechanism would impose a carbon tax on imports of certain goods from certain third countries. The tax would be imposed on products from countries with less stringent rules than the EU, which should ensure that imported goods are not cheaper than an equivalent product produced in the EU. The following changes to the objectives have taken place following an agreement between Parliament and EU governments. Further, reducing the number of annual allowances available by 2030, with the aim of achieving a 62% reduction by 2030. 1% point more than in Commission proposal, it was 61%. Phasing out free pollution permits for industrial companies by 2034. With the EU's border carbon tax mechanism in place and fully operational by the same year. The mechanism would apply a carbon tax to imports from less ambitious countries and prevent companies from relocating production to countries with less stringent greenhouse gas rules. Establish a separate emissions trading scheme for commercial buildings and road transport from 2027. This could be delayed until 2028 to protect citizens if energy prices are exceptionally high. A new price stability mechanism will also be created to ensure that an additional 20 million will be made available if the price of pollution permits under the renewal ATC rises above 45 million. What the EU member states emission reduction targets? What is the reduction targets? The effort sharing regulation, last amended in 2018, sets binding annual greenhouse gas emissions targets for member states in sectors that are not covered by the EU emissions trading system or the regulation on land use change, and forestry. This sector include road and domestic maritime transport, buildings, agriculture, waste, and also small industries. The effort sharing regulation sets a target for each member state to cut greenhouse gas emission in a number of economic sectors, which currently represents around 60% of total EU emissions. The EU is revising the regulation to align with its new ambitious climate goals, which sectors are covered, I mentioned before, as road transport, buildings, agriculture, waste, and also small industries. These sectors are not covered by the current EU emission trading system, which covers large installations, power plants, and commercial aviation. A revision of that ETC proposed as part of the Fit for 55 package extends the scope of the ETC to maritime transport. And the Fit for 55, a new emissions trading system is proposed for the buildings and road transport sectors, which will be covered under both the effort sharing regulation and the new ETC. What are the new rules about? With the updated rules, the EU aims to reduce greenhouse gas emission in the effort sharing regulation sectors by 40% by 2030. Existing 2030 target, 29% reduction, new 40% compared to 2005. What are the national targets? Each member state contributes to reduction of emission in these sectors, what is mentioned before, transport is included. The proposed regulation sets new and binding 2030 targets for each member state, and it defines annual national emissions limits that lead progressively to those national 2030 targets. The targets are set in a fair and cost-effective manner that takes into account national circumstances. The national emissions trajectories for each member state may be adjusted in 2025 if this is considered necessary in light of these impacts of, let's say, COVID-19 or unforeseen events on emissions, which could be happening some kind in the future. There are kind flexibilities to help member states reach their targets. Banking sector. If a country emits less than annual limit, it can use part of the surplus for the following year. Borrowing. If a country emits more than its annual allocation, it can borrow from the following year's allocation. And trade, countries can buy and sell excess allocations among themselves. Also, in emission trading systems, some countries may use a limited amount of allowances from the EU ETC to reach ESR targets, and in land and use and forest regulation, limited quantity of credits from carbon removal and the regulation on land use and forest may be used to reach ESR targets. So how does the new regulation contribute to the green transition? Reducing the carbon emission of key economic sectors, distributing the burden among member states in a fair and cost-effective way. The effort sharing regulation is closely interlinked with EU emission trading system and also land use and forestry regulation. As a member state work toward the emission reduction targets, the EU emissions trading system allows member states effectively allocate emissions allowances, encourage innovation, and promote cooperation among industries, fostering a collective effort toward achieving EU's climate objectives. And so that EU emissions trading system is a carbon market based on a system of cap and trade of emission allowances. For energy intensive industries and the power generation sector, it is the EU's main tool in addressing emission reduction. Since its introduction in 2005, the EU's emissions have decreased by 41%. How does the EU ETC contribute to the goal of climate neutrality? The EU ETC covers around 40% of total EU emission and has already proved to be the key tool for emission reduction. Since 2005, when it was introduced, the emissions have been cut by 41% in the sector covered. What will change with the reform? More ambitious emission reduction goals, new reduction of 62%, fast reduction of the cap, fewer allowances on the market, reductions of 170 million allowances over 2 years, and so and so and so. Those figures is quite different, and you could be involved as you like in yourself and those things. And what CO2 emission standards for cars and vans? The carbon border adjustment mechanism and stringent CO2 emission standards for cars and vans are complementary measures that work together to drive the transition towards a greener economy, with the SBAM ensuring a level playing field for European industries, and emission standards promoting development and production of cleaner vehicles, fostering a comprehensive approach to reducing carbon emission in both domestic and international contexts. But it means that cars and vans account for 50% of the total emission of carbon dioxide. The EU, as a part of the 55 package, is working on revising rules regulating the CO2 emissions from these vehicles. The proposal introduces progressive EU-wide emission reduction target for cars and vans for 2030 and beyond, including a 100 reduction target for 2035 for new cars and vans. The Council adopted its general approach on the proposal in June 2022. An agreement with the European Parliament was reached, and the regulation was adopted by the Council in March 2023. What will change? The proposed regulation increases the CO2 emission reduction targets for 2030 and sets a new target of 100 to 2035. Here we see the projected CO2 emission reduction for new cars and vans. What the expected benefits for the EU's automotive industry: greater innovation in zero-emission technologies, a stronger technological leadership and competitiveness, more jobs in the development and manufacture of new technologies. EU's automotive industry accounts over 7% of the EU's GDP. And then alternative fuels infrastructure, as CO2 emission standards for cars and vans become increasingly stringent. Development of the robust alternative fuels infrastructure becomes imperative, providing the necessary support for the widespread adoption of low carbon vehicles and enabling a smooth transition towards a greener transportation system. The main objective of the proposed regulation on alternative fuels infrastructure is to ensure that citizens and businesses have access to a sufficient infrastructure network for reaching or refueling road vehicles or ships with alternative fuels. The goal of the regulation is to ensure that there is enough infrastructure for cars, trucks, ships, and planes to recharge or refuel with alternative fuels. How does it contribute to a goal of climate neutrality? We see the figures also. There are over 30.4 million alternative fuel cars and vans in the EU today. It's then less than 5% of all the amount. What will change? Road transport, recharging stations, at least every 60 kilometers on main roads. For passengers, cars and trucks below 3.50 tons, 3.5 tons by the end of 2025. For trucks fewer than 3.5 tons by the end of 2030 every year. At least 2 recharging points in each safe and secure parking area. Hydrogen fueling stations, also we see the figures here. Liquefied methane refueling points, new infrastructure will have to allow ad hoc charging. A well-established and alternative fuels infrastructure sets the stage for effective energy taxation policies, what I think is very important for implementation of all those new regulation, as it facilitates the adoption of clean energy sources and provides a basis for incentive the use of low carbon fuels, ultimately encouraging a more sustainable and environmentally friendly energy landscape. The proposal for the revision of the Council directive on the taxation of energy products and electricity aims to align the taxation of energy products and electricity with the EU's energy, environmental, and climate policies, preserve and improve the EU internal market by updating the scope of energy products and the structure of rates, and by rationalization the use of tax exemption and reductions by member states, and also preserve the capacity to generate revenues for the budgets of the member states. The proposal is currently under discussion with the Council. In December 2022, EU finance ministers held a policy debate on the revisions of the energy taxations directive. Energy Taxation Directive explained that the EU is working on the revision of the Energy Taxation Directive, which is expected to play an important role in the EU's efforts towards a greener future by ensuring that the most polluting fuels are taxed at the highest. It aims to provide the right initiatives for producers, users, and consumers to adopt sustainable practice. Yeah. Why does the directive matter? The revised directive can ensure that the taxation of different energy products reflects the impact on the environment, encouraging businesses to make greener choices. Energy is responsible for 77% of greenhouse gas emissions in the EU, and greenhouse gas emission in the EU is EU by sector in 2018 is energy, industrial, agriculture, and so on. Main areas of revision is the proposed update of the Energy Taxation Directive focuses on two main areas: structure of tax rates. Minimum tax rates should be based on the real energy content and environmental performance of fuels and electricity, rather than on volume, and broadening the taxable base. The taxable base will be broadened by including more products and removing some of the current exemptions and reductions. So what can be expected to change under the current proposal? The most polluting fuels, coal, oil, gas, would be taxed at the highest. Aviation and maritime fuels would be subjected to taxation over a period of 10 years. The minimum tax rates for the fuels used in these industries, kerosene and heavy oil, would gradually increase, while sustainable fuels for these sectors would benefit from a minimum rate of 0 to promote the uptake. No distinction between types of use of fuels and electricity: commercial vs non-commercial, business vs non-business use. Continuous updating of minimum rates adjusted annually based of Eurostat consumer price figures. So, and finally, to summarize, I would like to remind everyone that the European Commission's Fit for 55 package is still on the way and is being harmonized, updated, and will be transposed to national level as well. It is important to be aware that the transport sector is an integral part of the whole environmental issue and has to be looked at as a whole. If you or a company have any specific issues that need to be discussed, I would be happy to be in touch with you after the webinar to discuss your specific issues. And the very last advice: regulations are regulations, but sometimes these new rules, especially if it imposes a new cost for businesses, stimulate to look for cheapest way for greenwash, for instance, is bad. It's very bad. My suggestion would be at first to change the new environmental approach we need to adopt in your heads and heads. Then all the positive changes will be much more easy to take. So thank you very much for your attention. I expect it was usable for you. I'm sorry, I was on rush a little bit because of time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vaidas. I think these are very, very valuable insights what you have provided, and I think we will most probably hear some more also maybe from the participants in terms of the questions. So thank you. And this brings me now to our next seminar part. We are going to have a panel discussion and introductions from our industry representatives who are working on implementing innovative solutions to tackle this climate change on their daily basis. Before I introduce you, I would like to mention that in the middle of the controls of this webinar, there is a box for chat. So if you do have any questions coming up now during this panel discussion or about this seminar in general, please submit your questions into this chat box and we will address them at the end of this introduction and panel discussion. So here in the panel discussion, we have 4 participants. We have Kaur Sarv, who is Sustainable Transport Solutions and Driver Services Manager at Scania. We have Andrius Gupta, who is Director of Business Development, developing rent-a-car business in Baltics for over 10 years. And we have Joonas Stakauskaite, who is Sustainable Partnerships Manager in the Baltics at Neste and dealing with marketing and services. So here I would like to welcome Kaur to present what fancy things they are doing at Scania. Hello, Kaur.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. And I would very much like to hear now what you are doing at Scania.
So, good afternoon. And I will give you a quick overview how Scania is working with sustainability and what we are currently doing with different alternative fuels and sustainable fuels. Scania has kind of defined its work and role in heavy-duty trucks and buses sector, as we have the purpose to drive the shift towards sustainable transport system, and we want to create a world of mobility which is better for business, society, and environment as well. So to be a leader in sustainable transport. For this, we need partners and partnerships. We can't do it alone, and first of all, the transport companies on the right here, they are our customers. But if we want to use sustainable solutions like biodiesel, biogas, or electricity or hydrogen, then we need to have the infrastructure partners with us. And in the end, when a customer's customer, buyer of transport services, will ask the transport company that they would like to have sustainable fuels or decrease their footprint, they will also need some more information and support how to bring together these different solutions. And this has been my role in Scania for the last 5 years, starting from biodiesel and then biogas. And now I'm working more with electricity and also with some hydrogen preparation as well. And why it is so important for heavy-duty vehicles or trucks to become more sustainable. The main reason is that we have on Earth many more billions of people in last 150 years. Today we are talking about 8-9 billion people living on Earth, and in coming decades. So the need for transport is increasing, and if we continue to do it in the earlier ways where we have high fuel consumption or we use only fossil fuels, it will start to impact us, and the resources will run out eventually. As the previous speaker mentioned, currently 25% of global emissions come from transport. And why there's so much more talk about transport now is that energy industry, housing, they have been kind of improving and making themselves more efficient in last decades. And now it's the time of transport, and now there are kind of reliable energy efficient solutions for vehicles. So transport is the key to economic and social sustainability. Here is the picture how the transport sector is transforming and what are the things impacting it. On the left side, you can see that more and more people live in urban areas, in cities. There's sustainability goals now, digitalization coming in last 10 years. And from the right side, the connectivity of vehicles, electrification to make the trucks more energy efficient, because with the internal combustion engine we are losing more than half of the energy or half of the fuel that we put into our tanks to heat. So out of 1 liter of diesel, you only get some 30 to 40% energy only in the wheels of the truck. And also automation is coming. Maybe firstly in the closed areas, in harbors, in mines, but there are more and more solutions for automated vehicles. So the option is here to be pushed by these new trends, global and industry trends, or to be the driver of these changes, or as we call it, driver of the shift, driving the shift. What we have seen in the last 10 years, I think we all know how Uber and Bolt, or these different ride-sharing companies, changed the taxi business. It used to be that we called to the taxi call center and we didn't know when the taxi was coming or where it was. Now we have full overview of this. So technological disruption and different market forces are influencing the whole economy. And at the same time, we want to decrease everything to become sustainable, zero carbon, loss of nature, and to improve the living conditions on Earth. And at the same time, many people are asking that if we have so many new solutions, they are much more expensive. How can we afford them? So here is one example of solar panels, wind power, and batteries, how much more we produce now and how their prices have decreased at the same time. Scania asked after the Paris climate agreement that what should we do? What should transport do? We asked from the scientists, and they said that it's quite simple. You need to decrease the CO2 from vehicles, well to wheel, by 50% every decade. So it means that we need to reduce the CO2 from our operations and also from our vehicles as well. Because of that, Scania has set its science-based targets that from our own operations we will already manage to decrease the CO2 by 50% by 2025, and from our vehicles we will reduce 20% per kilometer, because the vehicles are in the hands of our customers. And how can we then decrease the CO2 when only making a Scania vehicle produces only 4% of the emissions, but using it for 10 or 12 years produces 96% of the emissions? Here you have some examples. The top orange parts here represent the kind of fuel diesel mix, which has some sustainable or renewable fuels inside. But the main part comes from the middle part, that we improve the combustion engine, the diesel engine, that it's more economical. Also, the driver coaching, training of drivers makes them drive more economically. And the electric vehicles, they are more efficient than internal combustion engine. They don't lose the heat when they are driving as internal combustion engine, and therefore as they consume less energy, they produce less CO2 as well. And also we need to use green energy and biofuel partnerships to reduce the CO2. And what I'm mainly talking about with decreasing the CO2 from our vehicles is this orange part on this slide, that we need to decrease the well-to-wheel CO2, not only from the tailpipe emissions, but we need to include the production of the fuels. So the fuels need to be renewable. Here is one example. On the left, you can see the combustion engine current Scania truck footprint during its lifetime, 10 to 12 years. The dark blue part is the diesel that the truck is consuming. And if we switch to regular electricity mix, then you can see that the reduction is not so good or not so small. But if you look on the right side circle, you can see that the dark blue part of the energy has decreased almost to minimum because it's using green electricity. And now the biggest part of the footprint of this vehicle is batteries, which also need to be produced sustainably with renewable fuels. And we have these three pillars: energy efficiency, renewable fuels, and smart and safe transports, which are the basis of our sustainable transport approach. I will start from smart solutions or digital solutions. Since 2012, we have now connected all our new vehicles with these kind of connected services. And as you can see, more than 500,000 trucks, Scania trucks, have these connected devices which can help the hauliers or truck owners to see how the truck is behaving, where it's located, and what is the fuel consumption. We just released last year the new Scania Super engine, which is 8% more economical than the earlier diesel engine. 8% might seem little, but if we go back to year 2004, compared to that time, Scania trucks have become 30%, 30, more fuel efficient. So 1/3 of the income has remained in the hands of our customers thanks to saved fuel savings and of the engines development. And at the same time, the diesel engines have become more sustainable with different Euro classes. So now we are in Euro 6, and the new Euro 7 might also come. But all the time, the fuel consumption of all new trucks has decreased. And if you decide to use renewable fuels to reduce your fuel consumption, then here are a couple of options. You could use the CBG or compressed biogas. You could use the biodiesel HVO, which gives you 83%, as you can see from this slide. And there are also even liquid biogas options. And as you can see, like I mentioned earlier, just going for electricity is not so good right away, because if you use the average European electricity, you only decrease your footprint by 55%. But in the brackets below, you can see that with renewable electricity or green electricity, you can decrease the CO2 footprint compared to fossil diesel by 99%. So there's several ways to decrease the footprint, and here are a couple of examples also why with electricity you need to be careful, because, for example, here you can see what the Baltic's electricity production CO2 average is here. You can see that Poland is quite dark brown, and Estonia as well, because they are using coal type of energy sources. And if we are looking into electricity consumption, then Latvia is one of the greenest, because they have Daugava, they have lots of hydro energy and lots of biogas cooperation plants, and also Lithuania is in a better situation than Estonia, which still needs to work quite a lot. And with electric vehicles, you need to go for the renewable electricity package or solution. But now about what is coming, and here is the plan for Scania, that by 2030, more than half of our new vehicles in Europe should be electric vehicles. And how we plan to achieve this? We already have these electric urban trucks, and one is driving around in Estonia for a year now, and the second new one is in Lithuania currently being finalized, and then it will start to work as a demo truck for 1.5 months. Our customers can test it out in real life conditions. The urban truck can drive up to 250 kilometers, and last summer we tested it out between Tallinn and Riga, and we had to charge only one time in southern Estonia. It was some 55 minutes, and the battery was full again, and we could drive to Riga. So if you have some time or reserves, you can easily drive already in Baltics with electric trucks. But better options come this autumn. We will start the production and sales of regional trucks, which will have the driving range up to 400 kilometers and can take also these semi-trailers. So these will be probably quite suitable for Baltics operation, and they can take already the gross train weight or of the truck can be up to 64 tons. So all the regular 40-ton trucks can be operated. Here are a couple of examples. These trucks on these pictures are already working, and some of them for 2 years. You can see some 80 tons, 74 tons. So quite heavy vehicles are operating in winter conditions in Scandinavia, in Europe, that they already exist, and this means that the change will be quite fast. There's quite a lot of questions often about batteries, and a month ago Scania published this news that they have tested successfully a battery which is made with green energy and which can be driven for 1.5 million kilometers and more. So this is the whole truck lifetime, and can be used for 1.5 million kilometers. What happens with the batteries afterwards? What is happening when the battery has driven for this 1.5 million kilometers? Then they can be used in housing as a reserve battery for the solar panels, for example, and afterwards they will be recycled. And now quickly about the first Baltics and Estonian electric truck that started to drive last summer. You can see that the first charging on highway was a bit complicated. We called to Alexela, this energy company, and said that we have no other option than to park all over your parking spaces and to charge like that because we needed energy. And this shows you how the charging is not so ready for big trucks yet. The only charging places that we found suitable for this kind of truck were the Ionity chargers on Via Baltica, where you could fit the 12-meter long truck. But many trucks are longer and have these semi-trailers. So you actually need different type of drive-through charging stations where you could charge on the side of the vehicle. So here are a couple of slides about charging, and quite often we are asked that there's not enough charging, suitable charging spots on highways, how the trucks can charge. But actually they don't need to charge in the beginning on highways because they will start to charge in the depots. The first electrification route or possibility is most suitable for the trucks that are driving around the same route daily, like trams or public transport. So they will start to charge in the depot, and later on will come trucks that will start to charge on the highway. Here are a couple of pictures for you what is coming, and here is the example of highway charging. And as a final slide, I will show you an example between battery electric vehicle and fuel cell or hydrogen vehicle. And currently, hydrogen production requires so much energy that you can see from this slide that only 25% of the initial energy reaches the wheels of the truck. And if we compare it to electric truck on top here, you can see that from production to the wheels, you can get 75% of energy. So this shows how energy efficient the electric vehicles are and how hydrogen needs some more development time. So probably more examples in the next decade. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. This was very, very inspiring and gives me really hopes. I think you're very much on the right track, and I think the whole industry will have to catch up, or industry needs to change. And I think we have such great companies showing the way and showing possible solutions, then the transition will be much, much easier. With this, I would like to introduce now to our second panelist. Our second panelist is Andrius Gupta, who is Director of Business Development of Autolux, a Hertz franchise company in Lithuania, what they are doing in order to transition. So. Hi, Andrius. Thank you for joining us today. So please.
Thank you for giving the chance to attend today. Kaur, impressive job what Scania is doing. We feel really small with our problems right here, but as Kadri told, I'm Andrius. I'm representing Hertz in Baltics. Why I am here today? It's because we're in transition stage. To be more specific, our transition takes place in our fleet, so we are trying to turn more into electric fleet, and we have challenges and some ways how we are overcoming them, and we want to share it with you. Everything began with the Hertz International back in US. So they set the target that their fleet will consist of 25% of electric vehicles by the end of 2024. And the main reason is that Hertz has around 50% of corporate customers. That means they have 50% of business customers coming to the counters and renting the vehicles. And all the biggest companies has huge plans to reduce their carbon footprints. So that's why Hertz is trying to increase the electric fleet. So are we as well. And here I have some statistics, some challenges to share with you. So I have divided our activities to two main parts. So we have rent-a-car, which is short-term car rental, and we have full service leasing, where we are renting vehicle with the services for the customer from 1 year to 5 years, up to the demand. So to divide the fleet, at the moment, for short-term car rental, we have around 20% of hybrid and electric vehicles. And our target for year 2025 is to double it to 40%. Of course, the main difference, I believe, between all the industry with car rental is that we are completely dependent on the customer's needs. So if the customer needs electric vehicle, we will be here to help. If customer doesn't need the electric vehicle, we have a challenge, which is described here. So at the moment, the main challenges is like lower fleet utilization. And by fleet utilization, we are measuring our performance. So utilization is the percentage of rented vehicles from the total fleet. So with electric vehicles, we have to spend more time by charging the vehicles, and it takes longer. It makes longer preparation time, which just reduces the utilization of the vehicle, which reduces income. We are offering for customers pre-charge options, just to pre-charge the vehicle at counter so they can return with a 10% of the battery. They can check this option for the really low price, but by this we can somehow cover the charging time and the standing vehicle without the rental. The big challenge is infrastructure in the airports. It touches not only us; it touches all the competition in the Baltics. So at the moment we have really funny situation, because starting from Lithuania has no charging stations in airport in their car rental parking lots. They are in the tender. The tender is in the place for renting all the parking lots to the third party, and then they will be authorized to implement charging network for all Lithuanian airports. In Riga, we have few charging stations in long-term parking, which are shared together with a public parking lot, and in most of the cases it even doesn't work. In Tallinn airport, we have non-charging stations, because airport just told that at the moment they have no technical possibilities to provide us with electricity. So what we are doing, we are making research, and we are using alternative charging locations. So that means we are bringing the vehicles from the airport to the charging stations, which are outside, and we are back to the first point, lower fleet utilization. So it costs us much more to have electric fleet comparing to regular cars. As well, we have low demand on the electric vehicles at the moment, but what we are doing, we have implemented special pages in Hertz website where we are educating the customers. What is the electric vehicle range? What should be your driving style? What is electric vehicle itself? How to use it? How much luggage do you need? Or maybe there is not all the stuff in the car which is necessary for you to drive. As well, we are pushing counter guys, the persons who are serving our customers, to do attractive upgrade options and to be very cheap with these prices, to offer customers with electric vehicles just to try them and to understand what is this vehicle. With full service leasing, we have 12% of electric and hybrid vehicles in place, and our aim for 2025 is increase it double as well. So what are the challenges? So of course it's higher vehicle price. So we turn from TCO to TCM, so from total cost of ownership, which we are calculating to the customers, to total cost of mobility. That means our calculation includes not only vehicle costs, depreciation, etc., but it includes as well cost for fuel, parking lots, and charging. As well, we're using EU subsidy for our vehicles which are purchasing to get the better price to the customer and to be more competitive. Infrastructure, same as with the airports, with short-term rental, we have struggles with infrastructure in real life, not only in the airport parking lot. So we are including charging stations in vehicles offer, and we are always working with the customer closely just on recommendation, which model with what range he should select for his needs. And finally is delivery time. So delivery time for the vehicles is quite long. That's why we are ordering our own stock. On July, we're starting with new website where we'll have live stock available, like eShop. So you'll be able to select plenty of vehicles, especially electric and hybrid ones. And to do that, we're closely working with dealerships, which shares with us their stock at the moment, and we have always firsthand to get the electric vehicles from them. And the plan for the future is financing budget of 5 million euros to increase our rent-a-car electric fleet and to reach our target of 40% in general. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Andrius. It's good to understand now from the other side what you're working on and that you really have challenges with the charging stations. So this is also what we heard from Kaur. Thank you. So with this, I would like to now invite Joona to present within 5 minutes also what they are doing from Neste's side and how they can help the transition. So help me welcome Joona. Hi, Joona.
Hi, Katja.
Welcome. So please go.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So I'll try to be effective, still mentioning the most important parts. It's been impressive to listen to the transitional stories shared by Hertz and, of course, by Scania. And when it comes to Neste, perhaps a few interesting facts for the audience to know is that despite Neste was founded in 1948, with, at the time, current goal to secure Finland's oil supply, the transitional journey began not at the time, in 1948, somewhere a bit later. And I'm really happy it did, because now it sort of is one puzzle to put together in the big picture that we are all here to discuss today. So we have ambitious targets, and we have also set ourselves very ambitious goals to become, for example, carbon neutral in our own production by 2035. And during this journey, we also have raised another level of ambitious targets that's from 2030s to help reduce our customers and clients their greenhouse gas emissions by up to 20 million tons annually through our services and our renewable products. So, of course, this somehow might seem dubious because we were founded once. We are still somewhat producers of the crude oil products. However, we really clearly see that the transition is key for us and as well key for our customers. So what do we see and how does this full picture look like? And it was already very well described by both Scania and the other speakers. So we can see that the global oil consumption prediction for 2040 is almost 5 million tons. And the use for oil in transportation is a bit more than half of that. So what we usually speak of is that we need all the possible solutions to be able to solve this big challenge, this global challenge that everybody is facing in no matter almost which industry anymore. So what Neste is able to provide is, of course, the renewable solutions. So with part of the renewable solutions, we can solve one part of the problem or the puzzle. With electrification, we can solve another part of the problem. Of course, then we are addressing other means, other solutions, renewable or more sustainable, whether it is hydrogen, whether it is other feedstocks like for Neste, crucial in order to develop further the possibility to deliver low carbon solutions to our customers. Maybe not dwelling too much upon the figures, but just once again emphasizing what the speakers have been mentioning before. The switch will not happen overnight. It will not happen over 1 year, even though we have very ambitious targets and goals through the EU directives, then implemented and translated into national laws. We realize that the heavy vehicle sector will develop a bit slower. We do realize that this is, of course, a business case for many. We are also acknowledging that electrification is the way forward, where we are also moving as well as Neste. But what we really see is that there are multiple areas where we need solutions today already. So we have the aviation part, we have the road transportation, we have also other questions like how to bring data, how to access sustainability data, and how to prove your actions with the data. But what I want to mention for us and for our future is that today we are very much focused on how to help our customers within road transportation, aviation, as well as polymers and chemicals. These are the three main areas for Neste right now, apart from maybe the sort of the idea that you might have had about Neste being a provider of the products coming from crude oil through our gas station networks in the Baltics. So we are very much an innovative company as well, looking ahead. How could we actually utilize and turn those low quality waste and residues into high quality products that help reduce emissions, whether it is road or air? So I've already mentioned this as an addition to our Neste My Renewable Diesel, one of the products available in Baltics today that is an excellent tool that you can insert into any vehicle that is driving on diesel without any modifications, and actually reduce your emissions by 90% on average through the life cycle of the product. Is that we also are looking into EV charge as one service. So I think we have mutual synergies with several speakers here today. And I think that this is the purpose, to realize where can we bring the impact? How can we make the impact with our partners, with our partnership? Just like Kaur from Scania mentioned, we cannot solve the puzzle alone. And this slide demonstrates that we've been quite active looking for those forerunners, looking for those partners in the region that want to make a change, that want to do the transition, maybe not necessarily have all the tools in their tool belt to make it happen today, but through the collaborations, through the partnerships and alliances with, whether it is private sector or public as well, which is really important puzzle in the big pie, we can actually make the change. That was the last slide. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Jone. So this brings us to our panel discussion, our questions. We do not have too much time, but I would like to ask every panel participant at least 2 questions. One question generic to your presentation, and then the second question about what is your one tip you would give to companies operating in this space? Where do they start? But before we go there, my first question goes to Vaidas. I mean, we understand what you explained is what is happening in the industry overall on this EU level. But what does it mean now for the companies in the transport sector in the Baltics? Do they have to do something now? Is it applicable already? Or as of when are they going to get fines? Will they get fines?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, that all those regulations is ongoing in transition stage. And it depends on the kind of documents which is taking place in European Parliament. If it's a reglement, it's directly imposing the rules in the Baltic states. If it's the other kind of documents, it could be adopted in our countries as well. But what I want to stress again, that the same thing as I mentioned at the end of my presentation, that the main decision maker or driver is and should be not a regulation but a real personal need, necessity, or to change, to choose sustainable solutions, less polluting solutions. They contribute to saving the environment, or at least to compensate for environmental damage. I mean that again, the same. It's related to the same last message. What I wanted to, or the main message. What I said, that we need to change in our hearts again. That to start do it, because there are a lot of gaps, a lot of ways to be aside of those regulations, and as we know, for instance, in Lithuania, in business, a lot of people do it. Everybody knows about those greenwash problem and whatever. So it means that that process changes all the time. Understand? And it is the step by step with regulation and our changes of our vision. As I joked with my colleagues here, today it's a very nice day, sunny day. Instead of we sitting somewhere near the sea coast, I'm sitting here in my room in the hall and discussing about the environment. If we shouldn't change in our minds, maybe in 10 years period, we wouldn't be able to go to the sea coast and be happy under the sun. That's
So
the main
what
issue.
is your one tip for the customers to start now?
To start yesterday, to change in our head. That's the main message.
Very good. Thank you. I would like to ask my next question to Kaur, because this what you showed, it looks very fancy, but it looks also extremely expensive. So what does a truck cost, and how should a transport company who has maybe 100 trucks or 50 trucks in their fleet, how should they change? How should they be able to finance it? Is there a way?
Yes, maybe I can start with examples of prices that like a regular Scania diesel truck is around 140 to 150,000 euros. Electric truck is somewhere around 300,000 euros. So you need a good TCO, you need a really good mileage, starting from 100,000 kilometers per year, where the TCO comes to you, or when it becomes more profitable. So my main tip for the transport companies is that start with small steps. You don't have to do the whole task or the whole assignment right away and then go all electric with millions. Maybe just go to fuel station and try out HVO, this renewable biodiesel. It's already 80 to 90% less CO2 compared to fossil diesel. Then try out some biogas trucks. These are only 15,000 euros more expensive than the diesel trucks. And again, you will get this CO2 reduction up to 80 to 90%. And if you have tried out these solutions, real life solutions that exist right here, and you can do them right away, then take maybe one electric truck or start with the company cars, try out how they behave and how they behave during charging in winter, that you need to understand the specifics, that heat is not so good and then cold is not so good. Try them out, test them, and then you will understand that you can buy maybe every year one electric truck or every second year, but do the change gradually, and then it's much more easier, and you have already solutions with what you can decrease the footprint already 80 to 90%, but with much less cost.
Thank you, Kaur. I think this is a very practical tip, and I have already started in the private space to test out different electric cars, so I can really relate to it. Jona, question to you. Now, in terms of those fuels, what you are promoting here, are they affordable? How does the business case look like if I'm now starting to use this in my bus instead of the normal diesel?
I think I need to also maybe emphasize, maybe as a practical tip, that it's really useful to talk to companies to build partnerships, because even like Kaur mentioned, you cannot expect the change or to do a big leap. I think we have to look at everything as a marathon. So nothing is possible, to be done overnight. And I think this as well, when it comes to accessibility to our product, we are building it together with our customers. We're building it together with our partners. I think it's a great step. We have quite extensive accessibility of Neste renewable diesel in Estonia. So it's roughly 23 gas stations where we are able to offer the product. And I think it's a great way to definitely test it out. It's very practical. No, the best thing I think is that you don't need to change your vehicle. You can change what you put into the vehicle. And that already gives a huge change. Like how mentioned, 75 to 95 reduction, depending on the region and the legislations. But it's a great way to already start building the future today.
Thank you. So this means, just as a recap, the first step then should be to measure where you are at the moment with emissions, then test out and start gradually, one by one, exchanging the fleet. So to see this gradual decrease in CO2 emissions every year. Maybe Andrius, then to finish off with you, because we heard that you have challenges with the utilization rate of electrical vehicles and also the charging. So these two main challenges I heard. What kind of help or mindset change do you need from customers so that it would take traction and move faster?
As Vaida said, it's not only customers, it starts from you yourself. So you should trust in the new type of mobility. And there is no need of any help, I believe, because we should do it ourselves. So it's, as we are doing, it's educating our customers and trying them to help to cope with these challenges of new electric vehicles. I mean, the computer 30 years ago looked strange as well, but now we have electric vehicle in the parking lot. So I believe together we can do it easy.
So let's hope that somebody also who is building the charging stations network is listening to us and hears that it is desperately needed, and then we need investment, regulation, laws, anything to steer it in this direction. So thank you very much from my side. I really appreciate all these insights, what we received today, and I hope it will be useful for our customers and also our relationship managers in our bank to really understand what can be done in transport sector, which would be the elements of transition plan, what can be tested out, and this is the way to go forward. So thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you.
And I think with this, I would now like to move to the wrap-up of this panel discussion and the event today. For all the participants, I would very much like to ask for your feedback about this seminar. What did you like and what would you like to hear more or changed in the future? So please do scan this QR code and provide us your opinion. You can also download the slides after this seminar. I think we will upload them either tomorrow or the day after, so that all these slides can be also reviewed in peace. So please do send us your feedback. We will look for it until the beginning of next week, and we will share the slides so you can also learn and read more in peace. And lastly, this is not the last in our seminar series. Our next ones are coming up in autumn, where we will talk about the energy sector, climate risks in September, and the climate risk in retail industry and the circular business models in November. So the dates will be published in our website, luminor.ee/ESG, and we look forward to seeing you there again. I hope you enjoyed today, and now I wish you a great midsummer.